The wish. The glowing feather hovered just above Felix's head, drifting down like a snowflake made of dreams. Felix held his breath. It shimmered in the soft light, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. The air buzzed gently around him, filled with energy that felt like starlight wrapped in warmth. He closed his eyes and thought of all the wishes he could make. He could wish for a den filled with golden berries, or 1,000 clever tricks to play. He could even wish to be the most famous fox in all the forest. But instead, a quieter wish bubbled up in his heart, one he didn't expect. "I wish," Felix whispered, "to never be lonely again." The feather paused. The silver leaves above chimed softly, like a bell from far away. Then the feather dropped gently into Felix's paw. It felt warm, like sun-kissed moss, and light as dandelion fluff. The moment it touched him, it disappeared in a soft shimmer of mist. The magic rushed through him. His fur tingled. His whiskers twitched. His tail lifted on its own like it was catching a breeze. Then the cave slowly dimmed. The glow from the silver leaves faded into soft twilight. The magic was done. Felix sat still for a long time. He had expected fireworks, maybe a sudden crown of leaves or a glowing mark on his paw. But there was only quiet. "Maybe it didn't work," he whispered. He turned to leave, slipping out of the cave and back through the trees. The world outside looked the same. Peaceful, green, a little too ordinary. He made his way down the hill, back toward the vineyard, feeling unsure. What had changed? As he neared the talking grapes, he heard their cheerful chatter again. "He's back. He's glowing. Look at his ears. They're all sparkly." Felix blinked. "They are." "Not really," said Gerald. "But you've got that look about you." "The look of someone who made a wish," added Petunia. Felix sat down. It didn't feel like anything happened. The grapes were quiet for a moment. Then Gerald said gently, "Sometimes magic isn't loud. Sometimes it plants a seed and waits." Felix tilted his head. "Waits for what?" "For you to notice," said the grapes. Just then, something rustled behind him. Felix turned. A small mouse peeked out from behind a vine. Then a robin landed nearby, head tilted curiously. A squirrel popped its head from a tree hollow. One by one, animals began to appear. Creatures Felix had seen but never really known. "We heard about the feather," the mouse said shyly. "And the wish," added the squirrel. "We thought maybe you'd tell us about it," the robin chirped. Felix's eyes widened. He looked at the grapes. They swayed proudly. "You see," Gerald said, "you're not alone anymore." Felix smiled. For the first time, it wasn't a sly smile or a tricky grin. It was warm and wide and full of wonder. He sat beneath the vine, animals gathering around, and began to speak. A fox finds his forest. The sun was setting behind the hills, casting long golden beams through the vineyard. Felix the fox sat beneath the talking grapevine, surrounded by a half-circle of animals. Some shy, some curious, but all listening. He had never had an audience before. Usually, Felix played tricks and ran away before anyone could react. But tonight, he sat still. His voice was calm, and his eyes sparkled with something more than mischief. "And the feather floated right into my paw," he said, finishing the story. "It didn't boom or sparkle or shout. It just disappeared. And then I walked back here. The animals leaned in closer. Even the wind seemed to hush. And your wish, whispered a wide-eyed bunny. What was it? Felix hesitated, then looked around at the ring of new faces. The mouse with the twitching nose. The badger who hadn't smiled in years. The robin with feathers ruffled from flying fast to get there. The squirrel, sitting on his shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. He smiled, a soft and honest smile. I wished not to be lonely any more, he said. There was silence for a moment. Then the robin chirped, That's the best wish I've ever heard. The squirrel nodded. Better than my wish for acorns to fall cooked. Everyone laughed. Even the grapes rustled happily overhead. You did it, Felix, said Gerald, the leader of the talking grapes. You made the kind of wish that matters. Felix looked up at the vine that had started it all. You knew it would happen this way, didn't you? We suspected, said Petunia, dangling like a tiny purple lantern. But we also knew you had to find it for yourself. Some tricks are fun, added another grape. But kindness? That's the best magic of all. Felix rested his chin on his paws, feeling a calm he'd never known before. For so long, he'd darted from one clever idea to another. Pranking owls, swapping signs, hiding other animals' hats just to hear them fuss. But this, sitting still, listening, sharing, this was something else entirely. That night, the animals stayed late under the stars. They told stories of their own. Squirrel songs, badger dreams, robin jokes. Even the mouse recited a tiny poem she'd made up about puddles and cheese. The grapes sang a lullaby that echoed through the vines, and Felix joined in for the chorus, his voice low and scratchy but full of joy. When the moon rose high, casting a silver path across the leaves, the animals began to yawn and stretch. Felix stood up and gave them a little bow. Same time tomorrow, he asked. They nodded, tails wagging, wings fluttering. As they drifted away into the night, Felix curled up beneath the vine, the grapes gently humming above him. And for the first time in his life, Felix the fox didn't feel like a clever little trickster. He felt like he belonged. And that, perhaps, was the truest wish come true of all. The forest's new storyteller. Days passed, and the story of Felix the fox began to spread across the forest. Not as a tale of tricks, like the ones he used to be known for, but as a tale of change. The fox who found magic, made a wish from his heart, and discovered the power of friendship. Each evening, animals would gather beneath the whispering grapevine, where Felix would be waiting with a twinkle in his eye and a story on his tongue. He never ran away after telling it. He stayed. He listened. He learned names, shared berries, laughed at others' jokes, and even apologized to those he'd once tricked. Like the owl he'd convinced her nest was haunted, he brought her a feathered pillow made of moss as an apology. Or the hedgehog whose tunnel he'd filled with pine cones, he helped clean them out and brought snacks afterward. I used to think being clever was everything, he said one night, as fireflies blinked around him. But being kind, it feels better. And you're still clever, Gerald the grape reminded him. But now your cleverness has a heart behind it. A clever heart, Petunia chimed in. Best kind of heart there is. Felix's ears twitched happily. He still played games. He still had ideas that made animals raise their eyebrows and mutter, "What's he up to now?" But now his ideas were shared. He planned scavenger hunts for the little ones, wrote silly plays starring beetles and frogs, and carved funny faces into fallen logs just to make the porcupines laugh. One afternoon, a young fox approached him shyly. Her fur was soft and golden, and her eyes were wide with wonder. "Is it true?" she asked. "Did a feather really grant you a wish?" Felix nodded slowly. "It did. But the magic wasn't in the feather." The little fox tilted her head. "Then where was it?" Felix smiled. "In the wish, and in choosing to give up something important." He reached into his neck pouch and pulled out a smooth round pebble, the one he'd found in the vineyard on the day he met the grapes. He handed it to her. "Here. For luck." Her eyes lit up. "Thank you." As she bounded off, Gerald chuckled overhead. "Spreading stories now, are we?" "I think we've created a storyteller," Petunia agreed. Felix lay back in the grass, paws behind his head. The sky above turned pink and orange. A breeze carried the smell of grapes and honey. And in that perfect moment, Felix realized something beautiful. He didn't just belong in the forest now. He was part of it. His story had woven into the leaves, the laughter, and the hearts of the creatures who once only knew him as a trickster. Now, they knew him as a friend. And in the forest of talking grapes and glowing feathers, that was the greatest tale of all. The fox who became a legend. Seasons passed, and the forest continued to change with the ebb and flow of time. Felix, the clever fox, was no longer just a trickster. He had become the forest storyteller, its listener, and most importantly, its friend. Each season, more and more animals came to the grapevine for Felix's wisdom, laughter, and tales. His reputation had shifted from mischievous trickster to wise companion. It wasn't the pranks or the clever games that made him special anymore. It was his warmth, his patience, and his ability to bring animals together in ways no one had ever expected. The birds perched on nearby branches, waiting for Felix's newest story. The squirrels and rabbits gathered near the vineyard, their heads tilted in rapt attention. Even the grumpy hedgehogs had come to love Felix's evening visits. On one such evening, as a soft mist rolled in and the moon rose high, a familiar face approached. It was the young fox who had asked Felix about the feather all those seasons ago. Her golden fur was now more grown, and her eyes had a sparkle of curiosity and wisdom. She approached Felix with a small, thoughtful smile. "Felix," she said, her voice as bright as the stars above, "I've been telling everyone about the feather and your wish. They all say it's just a legend." Felix chuckled softly. "Some things are legends, and others are truths that haven't been discovered yet." The young fox sat down beside him, her tail curling neatly around her paws. "Do you think I could make a wish?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. Felix smiled warmly. "Everyone can make a wish. But remember, the real magic isn't in the wish itself. It's in what you choose to leave behind and what you're willing to give." She thought for a moment, then asked, "What did you give up when you made your wish?" Felix's smile softened as he remembered. "I gave up my favorite trick, the one that made everyone laugh. It wasn't easy, but it helped me see the things that mattered more, things like friendship and kindness." The young fox nodded slowly, taking it all in. I think I understand now." As the night deepened, Felix and the young fox talked about wishes, about the forest, and about the magic they all carried inside them. They spoke of the moon's quiet glow, of the vines that had stood for centuries, and of the feather that had changed Felix's life. Before long, the forest was quiet again, save for the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the vineyard. The young fox gave Felix a gentle nudge. "Thank you," she whispered. Felix's eyes twinkled as he looked at the stars. "Any time," he said. And in that moment, Felix knew that his legacy, his real magic, wasn't in any single wish. It was in the bonds he had built with the forest. It was in the laughter that filled the air, the kindness that rippled through the trees, and the way the forest had become a home for everyone, whether they were foxes, grapes, or even the tiniest ants. Felix wasn't just the fox who had made a wish. He was the fox who had shown the forest that the greatest magic of all is found in the heart. The heart of the forest. Years went by, and the forest continued to thrive, full of stories and laughter. Felix, the clever fox who had once only known tricks and pranks, had become something far more important, the heart of the forest. He had grown, just like the trees and the vines around him. His pranks had turned into games and tales that brought animals together. His cleverness had blossomed into wisdom, and his heart had softened with each new friend he made. One morning, as the dew still clung to the leaves, Felix awoke to a soft, familiar voice. "Felix, Felix!" the voice called. Felix opened his eyes, blinking against the morning light. Above him, the grapes hung like little jewels in the vines, their leaves shimmering with morning mist. "The forest is full of stories today, Felix," Gerald the grape said, swaying gently. "We thought it was time you heard the newest one." Felix stretched and padded over to the vines. The other animals were already gathering beneath the grapevine: squirrels, rabbits, birds, even a few shy hedgehogs. All were waiting for him. "What's the story today?" Felix asked, his eyes twinkling. "Well," said Petunia, "the new creatures have arrived. The ones from beyond the hills." Felix's ears perked up. "New creatures? What are they like?" "They're just like us," Petunia said with a smile. "Only they haven't learned the magic of friendship yet." Felix thought about that. He knew what it was like to feel like an outsider. He remembered when he had first started his journey, when he had felt like the tricks he played were all that mattered. "How can we help them?" Felix asked. "By showing them," Gerald said, "that no one is truly alone in this forest. Everyone belongs." Felix smiled, his heart warmed by the thought. "I'll do my best." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Felix made his way to the hill where the new creatures had arrived. There, at the edge of the forest, he saw them. They were shy creatures, their fur smooth and soft like the clouds, with wide eyes and nervous twitching ears. They didn't know anyone, and the forest felt a little too big for them. Felix approached slowly, his paws light on the ground. "Hello," he called gently. "I'm Felix." The creatures looked up, startled. One of them took a step forward, her tail curled nervously behind her. "I'm Felix," he said again, sitting down calmly. "I live here with all my friends. We share stories, play games, and help each other out. Would you like to join us?" At first they hesitated, but as Felix sat with them, smiling kindly, something changed. One by one, the creatures took cautious steps toward him. And then, without warning, the smallest one reached out and touched Felix's tail. For the first time, they weren't alone. They were part of something larger, something warmer. That evening, as the stars sparkled above, Felix led the new creatures back to the grapevine. He introduced them to all his friends, the birds, the squirrels, the rabbits, and even the hedgehogs. And together, they sat under the silver leaves, telling stories, singing songs, and sharing laughter. Felix realized that this was the greatest magic of all. The magic wasn't in the feather, or the wish, or the clever tricks. It was in the connections they had made, the love they had shared, and the way the forest had become a home to everyone. Felix had learned, through his journey, that the forest was not just a place, it was a family. And as the stars glittered in the sky, Felix the fox, with his heart full of joy, knew that this was the truest magic of all.